fam? It's your boy William of Ockham here, bringing more of that heat, that zesty, spicy content that you know you need, daddy-o. That's what I do, like 1,000 hammers on a single nail, and I do it for you, my fearless, truth-seeking mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, for all of us to usher in a new age of luscious abundance and love-oriented liberty.
Give me liberty or give me pizza pie.
Are you sick of the misinformation? Sick of ideas like radical feminism, shoving ideas down your throat and getting away with destroying people's lives? Well, we're in this fucked up, fallacious fight against a flood of disc narratives together, and I take it upon myself to bring the noise, to bring that discourse-defying discount, daddy-o. If you're watching this, it's probably because you're like me. You're sick of this shit. Let's bring the crunk, bitches. First, we gotta do some housekeeping.
Housekeeping? No.
First piece of housekeeping. This video is the first in a series of videos that will address the concept of community policing in an era of information technologies that is exploding across the globe, particularly with respect to the ubiquity of social media, its discursive, philosophical, and epistemological connotations, and the ramifications of economic, political, and, primarily, corporate investment and involvement in shaping and manipulating the content of and borders between our various town squares, such as Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and so forth. My second piece of housekeeping, well, my analyses of my data with respect to the Johnny Depp case is currently still ongoing. I have been busier than a one-armed paper hanger, as my mother used to say, developing my platforms with the purpose of combating the current crisis that we face and the flood of false narratives that have infiltrated public discourse and epistemological formations. Of course, my primary goal is to combat and resist the intended impact of these narratives, a goal that requires that I shed light on the dark information being spread by the likes of Michelle Dauber, Amanda Grady Sexton, and other false allegation specialists that are currently codifying into enduring law these anti-human outright lies that are based on a perverse distortion of a division of the sexes, a distortion that relies on the notion that men are inherently perpetrators, inherently rapists. However, as important as this goal may be, I am a human being with a stomach and a liver, with two voracious teenage boys that are like locusts in the pantry and fridge.
They're eating all their food.
Just second breakfast, lunch, second lunch, and first dinner.
I thereby beseech of you fine, kind followers and fire starters to subscribe, watch, become a patron, donate to my GoFundMe, or do anything within your practical power to promote my platforms. All of the info is in the description below. We all know that the state of this current system means that we gotta go out and get that cake, daddy-o. Get that cheese, cheddar. That yin-yang yabba-dabba-doo that feeds you. I feel that you feel me, mama. Please push my materials. Finally, fellow free-thinking ne'er-do-wells, your main man here, William of Ockham, your boy with the razor that cuts through that fat, that slices off that falsehood, is bringing you an exciting new place to do research together. Yes, alongside these videos on community policing that will be systematically designed as a sort of instructional series for us as a community to mobilize against these against the threat of false narratives that's encroaching upon our daily existence. Alongside this, I am also developing a social platform on williamofockham.com that is tentatively titled the Resistance Research Hub. A beta version will be available at the time of this video's release. Go check it out. The hub will act as a forum and message board to discuss and debate the current cultural Caligula commandeering community atomization. That's right, fam. This will be a place for discerning and intelligent discourse to combat the dominant narratives of hatred, ignorance, power, and profit. On the hub, you will be provided with not only a place to discuss your ideas, but to create your own groups, have private chats, so on and so forth. On this note, I will need moderators, members of the community to help me oversee the content creation. Oversight will, of course, be free from political and economic pressures. It will be voluntary, but vetted, community-oriented, but exclusive, yet not exclusionary. Hit me up by email, william@williamofockham.com. Okay, my zesty, liar-hating, feel-good fuckers, let's go! Well, I believe collective action can create change. Examples are legion. What kind of change do these lean, mean protest machines create? How many generations of predominantly peaceful, performative protests will it take to propel their purpose into the public's imagination? Well, answers to these questions are important and yet to manifest in concrete reality. But these protests, among others, provide us with case studies to analyze how people can organize and mobilize for actual change to the social structure within which we all live.
The issue is change.
To change the world.
Gotta change the record.
This video series will address how groups can engage in collective action to create real, manifest, and meaningful change. Why? Because I, for one, am sick of these demonstrably false narratives. Many of us are.
So fucking tired of this shit. Fuck this shit.
Satanic black magic. Sick shit.
I'm sick of this dog and pony show.
This sick fuck.
This is Sparta!
And we need to resist and fight back. Therefore, I bring you these videos as a sort of, let's say, manifesto for we the people.
Do you hear the people sing?
People helping people.
Stick it to the man.
What's that?
We can do anything we want.
To organize in such a way that we might become impervious to the unethical, anti-human narratives being pushed by the media and their corporate overlords. First, to create change, we need to identify what our target might be. Because a narrative isn't a manifest phenomenon, meaning it doesn't exist in concrete reality, it cannot be a target per se. A clear caveat, my commendably capable and candidly question-seeking cavaliers. I am not promoting nor advocating for violence or terrorism. But extreme cases make for clear and decidedly demonstrable examples for the formation and mobilization of groups for the purpose of social or political change. What do I mean by target? Well, let's think about what the dominant discourse defines as terrorism. Daddy-o, you know, those purportedly dirty deed done dirt cheap by definitively deleterious damnable cultural groups that decide to devote themselves to violent acts against another population of people. At least, this is the dominant definition provided by our hegemonic corporate overlords to delineate us from them, good from evil, man from woman, or whatever divisive discourse dominates the social terrain. Popular perspectives tend to view these kinds of social movements as a two-step model.
Oh, somebody stepping a duck? It's always been one step forward and two steps back.
Meaning that these groups target another population with the purpose of committing some kind of vengeful or lashing out type of violence. This view is mostly inaccurate.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Albert Bergenson suggests that most, if not all, terrorism engages in a three-step model. That is, an acting group commits particular acts against some other population with the express purpose, the express goal of affecting a third group to act in some way. Using the attack on the World Trade Center as an example, the acting terrorist group took action against the American population to affect the American economy in the first instance, but their overarching goal was to provoke a third party to action. That is, they intended to provoke the DNC, or American governmental apparatus or powers, into action.
Your borax, Poindexter. Man's life is at stake. We need action.
All right. And action.
By using another example, the Rwandan genocidal massacre, for instance, where a cultural group who identify as the Hutu systematically murdered members of another cultural group, the Tutsis, or any moderate Hutu, we can see another example of a three-step model or a three-step process of terrorism. The Hutu may well have desired the elimination of the Tutsi population, but the killing of those considered moderate Hutu suggests that the target of their collective action was not, in the final instance, the elimination of the Tutsi population per se, such as the farmers, the traders, what have you. Instead, to understand a tragedy like this, and social movements and group activities more broadly, we must move beyond the overly simplistic, traditionally binary two-step model of perpetrator-victim, which, as you might be able to tell, very closely resembles the current dominant narrative that plagues our society with respect to the division of sexes, sexual violence, and domestic abuse. To move beyond this ignorantly simplistic model, a model weaponized against the public because of its simplicity and the ease with which it can be accepted by the disenfranchised, to begin to move beyond it, we must understand Bergenson's three-step model. The third actor, or group in this case, encompasses myriad governmental and military actors, including the UN and Belgian colonizers of the regions. An example of this would be the broadcast of the, quote, Hutu 10 Commandments on the Radio Télévision Libre des Mille Collines, which incited hatred towards the Tutsi by using propaganda and erroneous racist ideology. The actual target of these events were not merely the Tutsi. Hutu and Tutsi people were murdered together throughout these horrible 100 days of violence. Overall, this example allows us to subvert the ultra zesty, super testy inquiry into violence itself, whether real manifest violence, codified corporate interest-based economic violence, or the discursive, gender-based discursive acrobatic violence being perpetrated on the town square.
I wonder what triggered all that violence.
I hope we're going to have some gratuitous sex and violence.
When they mix the sexuality and the violence, I like it.
George Orwell wrote, "Those who abjure violence can do so."
Instead, the study of violence can now increasingly become the politics of its use. In other words, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So, at the foundation of this video and the remaining series is a question that serves as the glue for a social movement to organize, a question that every social movement had right from the start, and every successful social movement were able to continually refine and hold high. This is where we must begin, friends, if we want the kind of cohesion and uniting consensus of values that will mobilize us as a group to combat these entirely deleterious false narratives that infect the cultural configurations of our human group. The question, my diligent, distinguished friends and family, is, in these or any other examples, who were the target?
I can't maneuver.
Stay on target.
This is what I call a target-rich environment.
Real nice. I got it at Target. It's on sale.
This is a question we must address if we hope for the kinds of cohesion and organization necessary to resist and fight back against these false narratives and the actors who speak these demonstrably vile, anti-human, divisive, and despicable narratives. When I ask who is the target, I do not mean the target of any kind of violence, my zesty mamas and papas. I mean the target of our collective action. The examples I provided before used violence against one population to influence or affect or provoke the actions of some other group. That's the target. I'll use another example that will delightfully damage the durable struts of the disgustingly damnable radical lefty feminist discourse that's been forcefully distributed down our throats. If we examine this Radfem theater of discursive war through an overly simplistic two-step model, the perpetrators appear clear. Charlotte Proudman, Jessica Taylor, Emma Katz, Laura L. Dunn, Anita Dunn, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Rosen, Tina Chen, the Obamas, Roberta Kaplan, and so forth. Well, the target also seems to appear clear. Young males on university campuses and any other male more generally affected through the weaponization of young women provided the ultimate province over claiming a victim identity, i.e. Chessie Prout, Amber Heard, and Evan Rachel Wood, regardless of evidence and due process, and thus giving them the ultimate right over naming a perpetrator, i.e. Owen Labrie, Johnny Depp, and Marilyn Manson. In this two-step model, the target is men. While I agree with this as a premise, it cannot properly illustrate the process. The brilliance of the Radfem movement is in how they've disguised their true intent. That their true target is how the human group codifies certain laws that concretize control over definitions of protected categories. That is, in short, their real target is the law, capital L.
Don't get mad, Tito. It's the law.
And the law says, what's the deal?
There is no freedom without the law.
The Radfem movement commits violence, whether manifest, imaginary, discursive, ideological, and so forth, against young men on college campuses or popular male cultural icons like our beloved Johnny Depp, with the intent for profiteering, with the express purpose of influencing the codification of laws that will consolidate power and the control of capital. By shifting our view into a three-step process, the target shifts as well to a more definable and digestible reality. Rather than becoming an overly simplistic us versus them explanation, we're instead granted a greater purview of the prospect that the perpetrators aren't merely the proselytizing false prophets of fake feminism, but instead we can see that the true perpetrators are the political and corporate powers fueling the weaponization of these petty, trumpeteering Radfem fountainheads. That is, in a three-step model, we can see that the target is the codification of laws that will benefit and profit those corporate actors off the destruction of the cultural understandings of womanhood, motherhood, the division of sexes, family, community, and so forth. Well, there are a select few women benefiting, which would appear to undermine my conjecture that the perpetrators, or terrorists, if you will, are attacking women and the biological roots of the division of sexes with the purpose of targeting changes in the law. This is what makes the strategy so powerful. On its face, the movement appears to be by women, for women. I contend that this is merely a premeditated red herring for the purpose of attacking, dismantling, and redefining the law, capital L, and the cultural standards surrounding it in such a way that will benefit the perpetrators, who are primarily white males in positions of great political and economic power, such as members of the Democratic National Committee, university administrators, members of the UK Parliament, book and magazine publishers, and so forth. The international intelligence community can be included as well, as they have their hands in various international Ponzi schemes and capital holding firms associated with these actors. This three-step model is vital for us to understand, friends, family, and ferocious freedom fighters, Liberty has always been defined in terms of terror ever since the French Revolution. Am I advocating for violence? No. I do not advocate for physical or psychological violence in any fashion or form in an ideal world. However, I also do not condone physical or psychological violence in any fashion. Consequently, kind and consummately considerate colleagues in the clamoring quest for equality of opportunity, we can collectively agree that the likes of Charlotte Proudman, Amber Heard, Chessie Prout, and their ilk have been weaponized to inflict demonstrable psychological, ideological, and political violence against a population of males with the express purpose of impacting and influencing the codification of laws that will consolidate power and profit in the hands of the perpetrators. We now have a framework of our own, friends and family. If these perpetrators don't view themselves as such, that is, if one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, then I propose that we need to organize ourselves similarly. First, before mobilizing, we must collectively come to a commendable consensus on the corrupt and contemptible target of our collective action. This is one purpose of the new resistance research hub I am developing with the community on williamofockham.com. I, for one, believe that our target must be, as I've said, commendable and consensual, and, although there are those who will disagree with me, I believe that the target, as it is that group of international financiers who are deeply embedded within the Democratic National Committee, the UK Parliament, and beyond. This, however, would be a long game target, and as such, I argue that our target must be those laws and codifications that are within our reach and which are affecting our members of our community in detestable ways. Therefore, we must target Title IX and its proponents, Michelle Dauber, Amber Heard, Evan Rachel Wood, Ann Kuster, Anita Dunn, Laura L. Dunn, and so forth. We will continue this discussion on the Resistance Research Hub. Our next step is collective action. That will be for my next videos. But I think a zesty, tasty, delectable outline would be commensurably appropriate rather than leaving you with a nail biter. What kinds of collective action are required? I'll address the ethical and sociopolitical implications of different forms of action in my next videos. But first, I must compel you to consider the values of community policing. Normally, valid and effective models of community policing require that community members and police authorities are in consistent contact in order to refine and redevelop each group's goals and methods for accomplishing those goals. In today's age, characterized by the ubiquitous utility of online information sharing, this model becomes nearly irrelevant. The kinds of crimes or illegitimate persecution that occur on social media seem of little to no concern to moderators of platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and what have you. Why is this? Well, dearest friends and family, it's been exposed and now almost widely disseminated that these platforms have been strong-armed and corrupted by political and corporate powers. For example, the DNC, Biden's administration in particular, recently strong-armed Twitter into banning journalist Alex Berenson from Twitter for disagreeing with the U.S. response to COVID. This was clearly due to the profits that they would gain from pharmaceutical interventions, not because of public safety. This is no different from the ways in which the political and economic corporate powers have influenced the passage of Title IX legislation and other SA policies that exponentially increase the profits made available through movements like the Women's March, the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence, and other similar coalitions that funnel millions and millions of dollars into the pockets of corporate and political powers. Since our goals for collective action are nowhere near the same as these imposters and villains, our collective action must be geared more towards policing these nefarious actors and their minions. That is, since the authorities, the moderators, and administrators of social media platforms are clearly shills, traditional community policing models are irrelevant because they rely on establishing and refining communications and cultural understandings between citizens and police forces or those in position of authority. Therefore, we are left to establish what I would like to call a narrative police force. This may sound totalitarian on its face, but you gotta fight fire with fire, daddy. These corporate actors have already established a narrative initiative. Quote, a project of the New Venture Fund, a non-profit in the Arabella Advisors network of left progressive dark money organizations that seeks to change and influence narratives surrounding issues of equity and social policy. Founded in 2017, the narrative initiative was, quote, conceived and funded, end quote, by the Atlantic Philanthropies and the Ford Foundation, two major left-of-center funding organizations, end quote. In short, dark money is funding a think tank of leading minds to develop radical left narratives to define how we think and act in our daily lives. Since these corporate actors behind this have taken this kind of despicable action, we must take similar collective action in turn and begin our own narrative police force through available technological channels. The Resistance Research Hub is just the start. If we take the battle to them, with our numbers, with our intelligence, with our collective chutzpah and justifiable moral indignation, we can begin a revolution against the feudal overlords who think that they're in control of our collective fate. Catch up with me on the Hub, friends. We'll discuss the target of our collective action and the ways in which we intend to influence the outcome. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and disseminate this content broadly, friends. I could use your help. Until next time, friends and family, it's your boy, William of Ockham. Peace.